Day, people of God. Happy New Month. Today we are starting the book of Romans, a letter written by Paul to the church in Rome. He had not yet been to Rome at the time, but he wrote to the Roman Christians an important epistle filled with rich doctrines of our faith that reveal God's heart for his people and what must be our proper response to such sacrificial love. The book of Romans is quite different from the rest of the letters Paul wrote to the other churches, where he focused more on those churches' challenges and problems. The letter to the Romans is centered around God and his great plan of redemption. Paul wrote the book of Romans to communicate the grand themes of God's grace, glory, and love encapsulated in the gospel. In chapter 1, Paul starts off by introducing himself first as a bond servant of Christ, then as an apostle. He is first a bond servant, meaning he has complete and utter devotion to Christ, separated to the gospel of God. He speaks about how we have received grace and apostleship for obedience to the faith through Jesus. The grace for obedience alluding to the fact that without the grace, favor, and help of God, one cannot be an apostle, for the gospel must impact all nations. From verse 7, he speaks about how the faith of the Roman Christians is spoken about through the world. So we get to see that genuine faith is something that can be seen by those around us, because faith should have works accompanying it, because faith without works is dead. Paul says he prays for the Roman church, which goes to show us that as intercessors, we need not to have been to a place or have experienced a certain culture in order for us to pray for people. Even if you have not been there, your prayers can go there. So it is important for us to pray for believers everywhere. Paul's heart for Christ is revealed as he shares that he is not ashamed of the gospel. He speaks about how the gospel unveils a continual revelation of God's righteousness, a perfect righteousness given to us when we believe. It not only gives us the life through faith, but also the power to live by faith. Paul goes on to speak about God's wrath on unrighteousness and explains why God is right to condemn humanity, describing the downward progression for unrighteousness, beginning with the refusal to see in creation what God has made knowable about himself to us, and refusal to see his fingerprint all over creation. Then humanity goes on to reject him as creator and refusing to give him thanks, thinking that we are wise. Furthermore, worshipping what God has made instead of him, we create lesser versions of his creation and we start to worship them. Our rejection of God's general revelation does not make us smart or better. It makes us futile and foolish. Opposition to the truth cannot be excused on the basis of ignorance, because he clearly states in the latter part of verse 20 that we have no excuse for not knowing God. As a result, God gives us up to debased minds, resulting in indulgence in every kind of sin. Paul goes on to list the sins that humans indulge in as a result of suppressing God's knowledge. In conclusion, humanity was in exile due to the entrance of sin and death into the world, but God has come to rescue all humanity through the death and resurrection of Jesus. No one comes into the glory except by the grace of God that fills believers with his righteousness. Amen. May God continue to bless us and teach us as we continue to study the book of Romans. Have a good day.